Billionaire CEO thought he ruined her big day. He didn't see what she had planned. "Mr. Whitmore, I know you're here tonight." The woman's voice cut through the elegant gala like a knife through silk. Hundreds of guests fell silent, champagne glasses frozen mid-sip. 8 years ago today, on my 26th birthday, you called me into your conference room. I presented my life's work to you, and you barely looked up from your phone. Do you remember what you told me? Dashiell Whitmore stood frozen in the crowd, his blood running cold. The woman on stage wore a crimson dress that commanded attention. Her dark eyes scanned the room until they found him. You said my ideas were impractical. Vanity projects. You told me to come back when I'd learned to design in the real world, not some utopian fantasy. The crowd began turning, searching for him in the darkness. Well, Mr. Whitmore, I came back. Not to your office, but to the world. And tonight, on my 34th birthday, I wanted you to see exactly what your dismissal created. She raised her glass, her smile sharp as broken glass. Welcome to the Kingston Foundation Gala. Welcome to the empire you said I'd never build. And thank you for ruining the worst birthday of my life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, before I tell you how we got here, let me ask you something. Have you ever been crushed by someone you admired? Have you ever had your dreams dismissed on what should have been your special day? What would you do if you had the chance to face that person again, not as the one who was rejected, but as the one holding all the power? This is a story about turning your worst moment into your greatest strength. About proving people wrong not with words, but with undeniable success. And about the unexpected grace that comes when you realize revenge isn't nearly as satisfying as rising above. If you love stories about transformation, about turning pain into power, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Mr. Steven Stories. Trust me, what happens next will change how you see failure forever. Now let's go back to where it all started. To the birthday that changed everything. 8 years earlier, Marlo Kingston woke up on her 26th birthday feeling like the universe was finally aligning in her favor. She stood in her tiny apartment bathroom, staring at her reflection. The navy suit she'd saved for months to buy fit perfectly. Her portfolio sat on the kitchen table, 6 months of work, of late nights and early mornings, of pouring every ounce of creativity into revolutionary designs for sustainable urban housing. Today is the day, she whispered to her reflection. Today changes everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from her supervisor, Richard Chin. Meeting confirmed. 9 a.m. sharp. Whitmore himself will be there. This is your shot, Marlo. Don't waste it. She wouldn't waste it. She'd practiced her presentation until she could deliver it in her sleep. She knew every number, every projection, every detail of why her eco-friendly housing concept was good for communities and good for business. Dashiell Whitmore was a legend in the development world. At 32, he'd transformed his father's modest construction company into a billion-dollar empire. If he liked her concept, her career would be made. She took the subway to his building, clutching her portfolio. The Whitmore Development Tower rose into the Chicago skyline like a monument to success. All glass and steel and money. The conference room was intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table that could seat 20. Leather chairs that whispered wealth. Then Dashiell Whitmore walked in, phone pressed to his ear, his expression tight with frustration. I don't care what the doctors say, he snapped. I want a second opinion. A third opinion. Whatever it takes. His voice softened slightly. No, don't tell him I called. I'll be there tonight. He ended the call and looked around as if seeing them for the first time. Right. What do we have today? Richard stood quickly. Mr. Whitmore, this is Marlo Kingston from our design team. She's developed a revolutionary concept for the Riverside Development Project. Sustainable housing with integrated community spaces. The projections are remarkable. Whitmore sat down, still distracted, and gestured vaguely. Let's see it. Marlowe took a breath and began. Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. Thank you for taking this meeting. What I'm about to show you is a housing development that doesn't just provide shelter, it builds community while remaining profitable. She walked them through her designs. Buildings that used solar panels and rainwater collection. Shared green spaces maintained by residents. Ground floor commercial spaces for local businesses. Affordable units mixed with market-rate apartments, no separate entrances. The financial model is sound. Market-rate tenants will pay a premium for community-focused living. Combined with tax incentives for affordable housing and reduced operating costs from sustainable design, the profit margins are actually higher than traditional luxury developments. She was halfway through when Whitmore interrupted. I'm sorry, what did you say your name was? The question hit her like cold water. Marlowe Kingston. I'm presenting the sustainable housing concept for the Riverside development. Right. He glanced at his watch, a movement so deliberate it felt like a slap. Here's the thing, Marlowe. This is all very idealistic, and I'm sure you worked hard on it, but it's not practical. Mr. Whitmore, if you just look at the cost-benefit analysis, Richard jumped in. Over the first 10 years alone, the return on investment exceeds traditional developments by 18%. I've seen enough. Whitmore stood. I appreciate you bringing this to us, but Whitmore Development doesn't pursue vanity projects. We build what sells, not what makes architects feel good about themselves. He walked toward the door, then paused. A bit of advice, Marlowe. If you want to succeed in this industry, you need to understand the difference between innovation and impracticality. Come back when you've learned to design in the real world, not some utopian fantasy. Then he left. The room fell silent. Marlowe stood there, her face burning. Her vision blurred with tears she absolutely would not shed in front of these people. It was her birthday. She was 26 years old, and Dashiell Whitmore had just destroyed her dream. She gathered her materials with shaking hands. Marlowe, Richard started, but she shook her head. It's fine. Thank you for the opportunity. She walked out with her head high. Made it to the elevator. Down to the lobby. Out into the street. It was raining. Of course it was raining. She walked 3 blocks before collapsing onto a bench, no longer able to hold back the tears. Rain soaked through her carefully chosen suit. Her portfolio sat beside her, months of work dismissed in minutes. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Hope your big presentation went well. Marlowe stared at the message through blurred vision. How could she explain that her shot had been crushed by someone who barely looked at her work? She sat on that bench for an hour. Finally, she stood. Walked to the subway. Rode home in wet clothes. That night, alone in her apartment, she sat at her kitchen table. A store-bought cupcake sat in front of her, single candle unlit. She opened her laptop. Pulled up her bank account. $17,462. Every penny she'd saved over 4 years. She started researching. If Dashiell Whitmore thought her ideas were impractical, she'd prove him wrong. Not by arguing. By building something so undeniably successful he'd have to acknowledge it. She found what she was looking for just before midnight. A struggling neighborhood on the south side. Buildings that developers had written off. A community that deserved better. The next morning, she walked into Richard's office. I'm resigning. Marlowe, yesterday was rough, but don't make rash decisions. You're right. There will be other opportunities. She placed her resignation letter on his desk. But I'm going to create them myself. What are you talking about? I'm going independent. Building my own projects. Proving that sustainable development isn't a fantasy, it's the future. With what capital? Marlo, be realistic. That word again. Realistic. Thank you for everything you've taught me, Richard. But I'm done asking permission from people who can't see what I see. The next 2 years were brutal. Marlo poured every penny into her first project. She bought 3 crumbling buildings in that South Side neighborhood. She showed up every day. Learned construction, working alongside the crews. Met with community leaders, listening to what they actually needed. I'm not here to gentrify your neighborhood, she told them at a community meeting. I'm here to build housing that serves the people who already live here. Mixed-income developments are more stable. Everyone shares the same spaces, same amenities. No second-class treatment. Mrs. Rodriguez, a grandmother who'd lived in the neighborhood for 40 years, raised her hand. Why should we trust you? Because I'm putting everything I have into this. If it fails, I lose everything. This is my life on the line too. Mrs. Rodriguez studied her, then nodded. Okay. Show us. Marlo did. She slept in her car when money ran too tight. She learned to negotiate with contractors. She fought City Hall for permits. There were nights she wanted to quit. Moments she wondered if Whitmore had been right. But then she'd remember that conference room. His dismissive glance at his watch. And she'd get back to work. 18 months in, the first building was complete. Mrs. Rodriguez was the first resident. She hugged Marlo with tears in her eyes. You did it. You actually did what you said you'd do. Marlo looked at the building, at children playing in the new playground. We did it. This belongs to all of us. A local reporter showed up. The article that ran changed everything. Mysterious developer proves sustainable housing can profit. Calls started coming. Investors wanting to understand her model. Other communities asking if she could replicate the project. Awards committees nominating her work. Marlo made a strategic decision. She would stay anonymous. Let the work speak for itself. She created the Kingston Foundation, operating through representatives. Over the next 6 years, she built 16 more developments. Philadelphia. Detroit. Oakland. Atlanta. Each one proving that innovation and practicality weren't opposites. They were partners. And through it all, she carried October 14th with her. Not as a wound, but as fuel. Every year on her birthday, she visited that bench where she'd cried in the rain. Sat there remembering who she'd been and acknowledging who she'd become. On her 33rd birthday, sitting on that bench, she made a decision. It was time. She called her business partner, Devin Matthews. I want to host a gala. Next year. October 14th. Our 8th anniversary. Devin was quiet. You mean your birthday? The day Whitmore dismissed you. Exactly. Are you sure you're ready? Going public, I mean. I'm ready. And Devin? I want Dashiell Whitmore on the guest list. Devin sucked in a breath. Are you sure that's wise? Probably not. But it's necessary. For closure. Now, before I tell you what happened at that gala, let me ask you something. Have you ever wanted to face someone who crushed your dreams? Not to destroy them, but to show them they were wrong. Drop a comment and tell me about it. And if you're invested in this story, hit that subscribe button because what happens next is the moment 8 years of work has been building toward. The invitation arrived on Dashiell's desk on a Tuesday morning. File this with the others, Vanessa. Standard charity appearance. His assistant paused. Sir, this one is different. It's the Kingston Foundation Gala. Very exclusive. They're honoring innovations in sustainable architecture. Kingston Foundation. I'm not familiar with them. They've been making waves for the past 5 years. The founder is notoriously private, but their work is exceptional. This is the first public event they've ever hosted. The date is October 14th. Confirm my attendance. And find out more about this Kingston person. If they're doing serious work in sustainable architecture, we might have common interests. Dashiell had changed in 8 years. His father had passed away 3 years ago. The loss forced him to reevaluate priorities. He'd started trying to shift the company toward more sustainable projects. The market was changing. The future belonged to developers who could balance profit with purpose. But he struggled. The Kingston Foundation's projects were exactly what he'd been trying to figure out how to do. On October 14th, he arrived at the gala. The venue was stunning. A renovated warehouse that managed to be both industrial and elegant. Impressive, he murmured. Whoever designed this space understands how to balance aesthetics and functionality. That would be the founder. There's supposed to be a speech at 8 o'clock where they'll introduce themselves. Dashiell networked, positioned himself near the front. His curiosity was building. At precisely 8 o'clock, the lights dimmed. A woman stepped onto the stage. She was striking in a crimson dress that stood out against the muted tones of the space. Dark hair swept up, revealing a graceful neck and determined shoulders. Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. For those who don't know me, my name is Marlo Kingston. Dashiell felt a jolt of recognition at the name, but he couldn't place it. Tonight is special for several reasons. It's the Kingston Foundation's first public event. It's our 8th anniversary. She paused. And it's my birthday. 8 years ago today, I had the worst birthday of my life. I presented what I believed was revolutionary work to someone I admired, and he told me I was impractical. That my ideas were vanity projects. That I needed to learn to design in the real world. Dashiell's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. No. It couldn't be. He told me to come back when I'd learned the difference between innovation and impracticality. So I did. I came back. Not to his office, but to the world. To prove that innovation and practicality aren't opposites. They're partners. Mr. Whitmore, I know you're here tonight. Hundreds of eyes began searching for him. You accepted my invitation, which I appreciate. I wanted you to see what happened after you dismissed me. I wanted you to understand that your words shaped the entire trajectory of my life. Memory flooded back. The young architect, so earnest. He'd been distracted that day, frustrated about his father's health. He'd taken it out on her. But here's what you didn't see coming. I didn't build all of this for revenge. I built it because you were wrong, and I needed to prove it to myself, not to you. I built it because those communities you called unprofitable deserved better. She stepped closer to the edge of the stage. I invited you here tonight because I wanted to thank you. You gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me, though you didn't mean to. You showed me that I couldn't rely on anyone else's validation. That I had to believe in myself enough to build my own platform. She raised her glass. So thank you, Mr. Whitmore, for ruining my 26th birthday. It was the best worst day of my life. The crowd erupted in applause. People turned to look at Dashiell. He stood frozen, mind reeling. He wanted to disappear. But he couldn't move. He could only watch as Marlo descended from the stage, immediately surrounded by admirers. It took 20 minutes to reach her. When she finally turned and saw him, her smile didn't waver. Mr. Whitmore. I wondered if you'd leave or stay. I stayed. I stayed because I owed you the courtesy of hearing you out. And because I need to apologize. Do you? Yes. What I did 8 years ago was inexcusable. I was having a bad day, which is no excuse. Your work was innovative. It was practical. I was too arrogant to see it. Marlo studied him. Do you know what the interesting thing is? I practiced what I'd say if you ever apologized. I had whole speeches prepared. Cutting remarks that would make you feel as small as I felt that day. And now I realize I don't need them. She glanced around. This is enough. Knowing I built something meaningful is enough. You've built something extraordinary. These developments, the communities you've transformed. It's exactly the kind of work I've been trying to figure out how to do. Marlowe's expression shifted slightly. Really? Really? I've spent the last 3 years trying to pivot toward more sustainable projects. But I've struggled because I kept approaching it purely from a profit angle. You understood something I didn't. That the community investment comes first, and the profit follows. Better late than never, I suppose. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I would like the chance to learn from you. Marlowe was quiet for so long he assumed she was preparing to tell him to leave. Walk with me. She led him to a side door. Suddenly they were on a rooftop terrace. The city stretched out around them. This building was my first major project in this city. The developer who owned it was going to tear it down, put up luxury condos that no one who actually lived here could afford. What changed their mind? I bought it. Used everything I'd made and bought this building. Then I turned it into mixed-income housing with commercial space on the ground floor. Half the units are affordable, half market rate. Everyone uses the same entrance, same amenities. The market rate tenants pay a premium to live in a building with soul, with community. Everyone wins. That must have been a massive financial risk. It was. I almost lost everything. But it worked. Dashiell was quiet. It's elegant. The kind of simple, obvious solution that only seems obvious after someone's done it. That's innovation. Not reinventing the wheel. Just asking why the wheel has to look the way it always has. Why did you really invite me tonight? Marlowe considered the question. Closure, I think. I've carried that day for 8 years. Used it as fuel, as motivation. But at some point, that gets exhausting. I wanted to see if facing you again would finally let me put it down. And? Has it? I'm not sure yet. Ask me tomorrow. Dashiell found himself smiling. Fair enough. For what it's worth, I am genuinely sorry. Not just for the professional dismissal, but for the cruelty. For making you feel small on what should have been a celebration. It was a long time ago. We're both different people now. Are we? I'd like to think I am, but I'm not sure I've actually changed that much. I'm still prioritizing profit, still playing it safe. Then maybe it's time to change that. You said you wanted to learn. I'm offering to teach you, if you're serious. What would that look like? Marlowe pulled a business card from her dress. Come to one of my job sites. Not as Dashiell Whitmore, CEO. Just as someone willing to learn. See how we work, talk to community members, understand the process from the ground up. She handed him the card. If you're serious about changing your approach, prove it. Show up. Do the work. Dashiell took the card. I'll be there. We'll see. People are probably wondering where the birthday girl went. I should get back. Happy birthday. For what it's worth, I'm glad you had the worst birthday of your life 8 years ago. Not because I'm proud of my part in it, but because of what you built from it. Marlowe paused at the door. You know what's funny? I've been so focused on proving you wrong that I never considered what would happen if you admitted I was right. What happens now? Now, her smile was enigmatic, I enjoy my birthday. Tomorrow, we'll see if you actually show up. She slipped inside, leaving Dashiell alone with the card and the weight of 8 years. He looked at the card. An address on the south side. A note in neat handwriting, sunrise is when we start. For the first time in years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Not pride in what he'd accomplished, but hunger to become better than he was. Marlo Kingston hadn't ruined his night. She'd given him a gift he didn't deserve. A chance to learn. To grow. Tomorrow, he would show up at sunrise. Hold on, because what happens next changes everything. If you're loving this story, hit that like button. And drop a comment. Would you have given him a chance to learn, or would you have walked away? Keep watching. Inside, the party continued. Marlo accepted birthday wishes and congratulations. But in quiet moments, she found herself thinking about the rooftop. The apology she'd never expected. The genuine interest that seemed authentic. Her business partner Devon found her. So. How do you feel? Lighter, maybe. Like I've been carrying something heavy and just set it down. That's good. Devon paused. I saw you talking to Whitmore. He actually approached you. He did. And he apologized. I've imagined that moment for 8 years. I had speeches prepared. But when it happened, I realized I didn't need them. Because you've already won. Have I? Or have I just been so focused on proving him wrong that I forgot why I started this? What do you mean? I built all of this to show him he was wrong. But tonight, I realize that's not why it matters. It matters because of Mrs. Rodriguez and her grandchildren who have a safe home now. That's the real victory. So what happens tomorrow? Tomorrow we see if he actually shows up. If he's willing to do the unglamorous work of understanding instead of just observing. And if he does, then maybe something unexpected can grow from the ashes of that terrible birthday. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not yet. But possibility. Across the city, Dashiell sat in his car, staring at the business card. Marcus, his driver, glanced in the rearview mirror. Home, sir. Actually, no. Take me to this address. They drove to the south side. The address was a construction site, but even in darkness, Dashiell could see the care going into the development. He got out and walked the perimeter. Security lights illuminated the site. The building materials were high quality. The layout thoughtful. Community input boards showed drawings from local children. This is what he'd been missing. Understanding that great development wasn't about imposing a vision, but about listening to what communities needed. Sir. Are you all right? I will be. What time do we need to leave to be here at sunrise? Marcus checked his phone. I'd recommend leaving at 5:15. Set an alarm. I'll be ready. That night, Dashiell barely slept. At 4:30, his alarm went off. He dressed in work clothes. Jeans and boots and a shirt he didn't mind getting dirty. They arrived as the sky was just beginning to lighten. Marlo was already there. She wore jeans and work boots, hair pulled back, hard hat in hand. She was talking to workers, gesturing at blueprints. She looked up when his car pulled up. Her expression registered surprise, then respect. You're late. We started at sunrise. Then I'd better catch up. Marlo studied him, then nodded. Devon, get him a hard hat. She turned to Dashiell. Have you ever actually worked construction? Not since I was a teenager, helping my father. Then today's going to be educational. You'll be on the crew helping prepare the site. No special treatment. None. You wanted to learn. This is how we learn. By doing the work. For the next 8 hours, Dashiell did physical labor he hadn't done in 20 years. His back ached. His hands blistered. But he also listened. To crew members who'd grown up in this neighborhood. To Mrs. Rodriguez, who stopped by and told him about her grandchildren who would be living here. To Marcus, the site foreman, who explained how Marlo's approach was different. She listens. Most developers force a plan on the community. Marlo came in with questions. What do you need? What would make your life better? Then she figured out how to build that. How long have you worked with her? 6 years. I was skeptical at first. Thought she was another do-gooder who'd give up. But she proved me wrong. She shows up. Every project, every day. Dashiell watched Marlo across the site, deep in conversation with a city inspector. She was pointing to plans, explaining, answering questions with patience. She'd built this. Not just the buildings, but the relationships. The trust. At lunch, the crew sat together, eating sandwiches. Dashiell sat with them, listening to their stories. Their hopes for the neighborhood. When the day ended, Marlo approached him. "You're still here. I half expected you to leave after an hour." "I said I wanted to learn. Though I'm going to feel this tomorrow." "Good. Pain means you actually did something. Same time tomorrow. You want me to come back? If you're serious, one day isn't enough. We pour foundation tomorrow. Frame goes up next week. If you want to really learn, you need to see the whole process. I'll be here. We'll see." Over the next 2 weeks, Dashiell showed up every morning at sunrise. He worked alongside the crew, attended community meetings, listened more than he spoke. He learned that sustainable development wasn't about expensive materials. It was about thoughtful design. About understanding how people actually lived. He learned that profit didn't have to come at the expense of purpose. And he learned to see Marlo not as the young architect he'd dismissed, but as the visionary leader she'd become. 3 weeks after the gala, they stood together as the sun set. The building's frame was complete. "Thank you. For this. For teaching me. I didn't do it for you. I did it because this work matters." The more developers who understand this approach, the more communities benefit. Still. I don't deserve your generosity. You're right, you don't. But that's the thing about grace. It's not about deserving. It's about choosing to create something better than what came before. She turned to face him. 8 years ago, you crushed me. I carried that for a long time. But tonight, I realize I'm finally ready to put it down. Does that mean you forgive me? It means I'm choosing not to let what you did define my story anymore. My story isn't about the man who rejected me. It's about the communities I've served. The families who have homes now. That's more than I hoped for. Are you actually going to change how Whitmore Development operates? Or was this just penance? I'm going to change it. I've already started. I'm implementing your community engagement model on our next 3 projects. I've hired a sustainability director. Actions, not words. That's what matters. I know. I can't undo the past. But I can build a better future. Then maybe something good can come from that terrible birthday after all. As fall turned to winter, Dashiell continued showing up. Learning, implementing, changing. Whitmore Development's first community-focused project broke ground in January. Dashiell invited Marlo to the ceremony. She came. Watched him speak about sustainable development that served communities. After, he found her. "What did you think?" "I think you're learning. You still have work to do. Your engagement could be deeper. Your commitment to affordable units could be stronger. But it's a start. Will you consult on the project?" Marlo considered. "I'll think about it." That's not a no. It's not a yes either. But it's possibility. And that's more than we had 8 months ago. October 14th came around again. Marlo's 35th birthday. This time, she spent the morning at the South Side site, watching families move into the completed building. Mrs. Rodriguez hugged her. "Happy birthday, Mija. This is the best gift. You gave it to yourselves." That evening, Dashiell knocked on her office door. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me today. Given the history." Come in. He handed her a wrapped package. This isn't to buy forgiveness. It's just something I thought you should have. Inside was a framed photograph. The South Side building, completed, with families gathered in the courtyard. I had a photographer document move-in day. This was the best shot. Everyone together, everyone home. Marlo felt emotion tighten her throat. It's beautiful. Thank you. May I take you to dinner? Not business. Just to celebrate your birthday properly this time. I'd like that. They went to a small restaurant in the neighborhood. Over dinner, they talked about projects and challenges. But also about books and places they wanted to travel. As the evening ended, Marlo realized something had shifted. She no longer saw Dashiell as the man who'd ruined her birthday. She saw him as someone genuinely trying to grow. Thank you for this. It's the best birthday I've had in years. Better than last year. The gala was spectacular. Last year was about proving something. This year is about actually enjoying where I am. You've taught me a lot, Marlo. Not just about sustainable development, but about grace. About turning pain into purpose. We both learned. You've shown me that people can actually change. That's not a small thing. They stood in the cool October evening. Same time next week. At the site. I'll be there. As Marlo walked home, she thought about the journey from that terrible birthday to this moment. But mostly, she thought about the unexpected grace of choosing to let go. Of realizing that her story wasn't defined by who'd wronged her, but by what she'd chosen to build despite it. Dashiell had given her an unintentional gift. Not the rejection, but the fire it lit inside her. The determination to prove that innovation and practicality could coexist. And now, he was giving her another gift. The satisfaction of watching someone genuinely change. Of knowing her work had influenced not just communities, but mindsets. That night, she didn't visit the bench where she'd cried. She didn't need to anymore. Instead, she stood at her window, looking out at the city, and felt genuinely grateful. Not for the pain, but for who she'd become because of it. So here's what I want to know. What door closed in your face that you need to stop trying to reopen? What are you building instead? If this story inspired you to turn your pain into power, hit that like button and subscribe to Mr. Steven Stories. Drop a comment about the worst criticism you ever received and how you proved them wrong. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that their doubters don't get to write their ending. Because here's the truth. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so authentically successful that their opinion becomes irrelevant. Marlo didn't need Dashiell to admit he was wrong. She'd already proven it to herself and to the world. Your worth isn't determined by who rejects you. It's determined by what you choose to build despite the rejection. The people who doubt you are giving you information about themselves, not about you. Their inability to see your vision doesn't mean your vision is flawed. So build anyway. Create anyway. Prove them wrong not with words, but with undeniable results. And when you do it right, when you build something meaningful, sometimes the people who rejected you become the people who want to learn from you. Not because they deserve your time. But because your work is so undeniable that even they can't ignore it. That's when you know you've won. Not when they apologize, though that's nice. But when their opinion simply doesn't matter anymore because you've built something bigger than their rejection. Marlo spent 8 years carrying Dashiell's dismissal. But the real victory came when she finally put it down. When she realized her story wasn't about him at all. It was about Mrs. Rodriguez and her grandchildren. About neighborhoods that were written off and are now thriving. That's the legacy that matters. Not the rejection, but the response. Not the pain, but the purpose you forge from it. So whatever door closed in your face, whatever dream someone told you was impractical, whatever vision someone dismissed, I want you to hear this. They were wrong. Not because every dream succeeds, but because their inability to see your potential says nothing about your potential. It only reveals the limits of their vision. Build anyway. Show up at sunrise and do the work. And when you succeed, be gracious enough to teach the people who doubted you. Not because they deserve it, but because your work is bigger than their doubt. That's the lesson Marlo Kingston teaches us. Grace is stronger than grudges. Purpose is more satisfying than revenge. And the best way to prove someone wrong is to become so right that their opinion becomes background noise. I'm Mr. Steven, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep building. Keep rising. Keep choosing grace over grudges and purpose over revenge. Your critics are watching. Give them something undeniable to see. And remember, sometimes the worst day of your life is actually the first day of your greatest chapter. You just can't see it yet through the rain. But keep walking. Keep building. Keep believing in your vision even when no one else does. Because one day, you'll be standing on a stage in a crimson dress, surrounded by everything you built, thanking the person who rejected you for the gift they didn't know they were giving. The gift of proving to yourself that you never needed their approval in the first place. That's when you know you've truly won.